So, let's be honest with each other, shall we? You want to start writing again.
Or maybe you're thinking about starting writing for the very first time.
Maybe your long break was your entire life. Or maybe you're just curious exactly what this video is about.
Recently, Kate Kavanaugh did a survey on writers kind of in the authortube community, and one of the questions on it was how long was the longest break that you've ever taken from writing? Most writers have only taken about 6 months to a year off.
Well, I took a 6-year break from writing and I recently decided to come back. So in this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about why I stopped, why I started again, and what I have learned from coming back to writing after a 6-year break. Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start.
Like a decent amount of writers, I started writing when I was pretty young.
And I was pretty prolific in the way that really only children are.
I wrote a ton of short stories, a lot of half-hearted attempts at novels. I remember when I was 13, I finished my first NaNoWriMo novel, and the fact that I could do something that seemed so big and so intimidating and so impossible was honestly, I think, a really pivotal point in my life, where I proved to myself that I could do anything that I set my mind to. And in my junior year of high school, I did my last NaNoWriMo, and honestly, after that, I stopped writing. I don't think I did any other creative writing from my junior year of high school until last year, which is 6 years. So you do the math on how old I am. I think the reason that I stopped was because I got really busy with school. I think high school is an incredibly busy time, especially with so much pressure figuring out how you're gonna launch yourself into the world after high school. I also had other creative outlets. I did speech and debate, and that took up a whole lot of time. That I probably would have otherwise spent writing. And I continued not to write in college for about the same reason. And at some point in this process, I think I honestly thought that I would never write again. I started to wonder if I had like the creativity to be able to come up with story ideas and carry them through to fruition. I also lost my writing community. A lot of the friends that I had who were big into writing were people who I knew before high school. So once I got into high school, I just didn't find as many other people who were as interested in creative writing, and then I didn't seek them out in college. So in general, my community just wasn't as writing focused. Another thing to note in college is that I stopped reading for fun. I had so much reading to do for school, and I didn't watch very much TV because I really couldn't afford the time. So I wasn't really steeped in stories in college or much of high school. I definitely think I started being steeped in stories more because I was watching so many of them during quarantine. I think especially I can credit this to rewatching some of my favorite shows from childhood, especially Avatar: The Last Airbender. A masterpiece. Honestly, I think I'm going to make a separate video on why Avatar: The Last Airbender got me back into writing, but it really just reminded me of why stories were so important to me as a child and why they're still so important to me now. Over quarantine, I started watching more shows, but I also started reading more. And I think those two things combined just kind of started building up this idea inside of me that maybe I would be interested in writing again. And then when I rewatched Avatar, I don't know, something just really clicked inside of me, like some dam just broke. I wanted to be able to write a story like that, a story that like really could touch someone, a story that could really move them and inspire them and really speak to the things that they're facing and the things that really matter to them, and ultimately the things that really matter to me. So after that kind of spark, I got the idea for Project Order, my current work in progress, and then I did NaNoWriMo and kept writing, and here I am now at almost 90,000 words in my manuscript. So here are the 7 things that I learned about coming back to writing. Give yourself permission to be terrible. I think when I first decided that I wanted to start writing, I really wanted to write kind of backstory scenes or just trial scenes or just test out my characters, see if they really were who I thought they were. But I was just paralyzed. I couldn't start writing those scenes. I could think about them and world build and brainstorm, but I couldn't sit down and get myself to actually write because I was so scared that it was gonna be really bad. And the fact of the matter is, once I did finally do it, it was really bad. Putting it off for a long time didn't make me less bad. It took time away from me that I could have been getting better. So I really had to sit down and have like a pep talk with myself that like, you have to start somewhere. And right now it's gonna be terrible, and that's okay. You have permission to be terrible. Don't judge yourself by how good you think you should be. So when you take a big break, especially a long one, it's really tempting when you come back to think that you'll pick up exactly where you left off. But the fact of the matter is
Back then, I was writing a lot more than I'm writing now. And as sort of embarrassing as it is to say, I do think my high school self was writing better than I am at this moment. But that's okay. Don't expect yourself to start right where you left off. And similarly, if you've done other types of writing a lot, like if you do a lot of academic writing or writing for your work or other types of nonfiction writing, don't expect yourself to step into fiction thinking that you're going to be as good at fiction as you are at every other type of writing. It's a different skill. It's not worth comparing. Ease yourself in and set small goals. When I first started writing again, I set really small goals for myself. Like, write your first scene. It could be like 100 words or 50 words or however long you can manage, but write something in a fiction style. So I think those small goals really allowed me to feel proud of the very small steps that I was taking. And I definitely think that that time was helpful in building up my creativity. Which leads into the next point. Creativity is a muscle. Just because you don't have ideas now doesn't mean that you never will. Part of the reason why it took me so long to get back into writing was I honestly thought that I wouldn't be able to come up with enough ideas. I think so much of that time was spent not using that imagination that I had like locked it away in such a tight little box. I was really afraid that maybe it was just gone, maybe I just couldn't come up with ideas. And especially, being on authortube or listening to other writers who have so many ideas that they can't even choose. I was like, wow, maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't have all of those ideas, but I know that I want to start writing. Like, where did they go? Where do you get them? What happens if I can't come up with them or if I've just lost that spark somehow? But what I learned is that creativity is truly a muscle. In the beginning, when I was brainstorming ideas, I set very small goals for myself, and every idea I came up with was a treasure for me. But as I kept getting more and more ideas, I found that it was easier and easier to come up with things. It was like I was breaking open this side of my brain that I hadn't accessed in a really long time. And once I did that, all sorts of ideas started to come out. It was like a snowball effect. Creativity is not something that you turn on and off, in my experience at least. I really think that it's something that you have to use in order to get more out of it. Be careful not to teach yourself to hate writing. This is something that I was really worried about, making writing feel like it was a chore or something that I had to do. So I was really careful to kind of ratchet down those expectations to make sure that it was always something that I wanted to do and not something that I felt like I had to do. So I think in tandem with setting small goals, it's important to make sure that you are really checking in with yourself, or at least for me, and making sure that I didn't overextend myself and start to associate bad feelings with writing. Writers write. They don't just brainstorm. I think I brainstormed for longer than I should have. I really should have started writing probably earlier than I did. But I was really scared to start writing, and I kind of got comfortable in the brainstorming phase. I think if it wasn't for NaNoWriMo, I never would have broken out of this. So NaNoWriMo was a wonderful tool for me to force me to sit down and start writing and start getting through my draft. And lastly, writing is best when you aren't alone. I think this was obviously really hard in 2020 when a lot of us really were physically alone, but I found NaNoWriMo and writing communities online to be super helpful for me while I was starting to get back into writing after a long time away. I did find a whole lot of encouragement and support from writing communities on Instagram and on YouTube, and all of that I think was super helpful in motivating me and encouraging me to keep going when it was hard. So let me know if you have ever taken a break from writing, whether it was only a couple months or many years. If you started writing again, what got you back into writing? As always, thank you very much for watching. It is wonderful to have you here, and thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. You rock. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you right back here very soon. Bye. What I've learned about myself and life. These people, they're talking in the middle of my video. I took a 6-year break. Let's chat. Let's chat.